Hello guys, so today I have a very special guest from Silicon Valley, and I would like to ask him to share with you the experience of working as a manager in a team and must have this so-called quality engineer involved in the process. So hello พี่ภาคนะครับกิตติภัทรกุล and I would like to start by having พี่ภาค introducing yourself to the students, please.
Hi, yeah, my name is Park. A little bit about myself. I've been in Silicon Valley for the past 12 years now. I started working as a software engineer in companies here as a software engineer in the team, working closely with product managers, also quality engineers, as well as other roles in a customer-facing product development team. And I've been a couple of my experience involved in enterprise software. So I work at Salesforce, where we built basically a multi-tenant SaaS product. I was there for 4 or 5 years, and then I went to Twitter, where I worked on mobile development teams, so iOS and Android on Twitter. And then I went to a startup called SignalFX, which later got acquired by Splunk. So here I work as an engineering manager, work closely with engineering team, also a couple of quality, there are quality assurance, quality engineers, different roles. Again, in product facing, customer facing product development teams. So that's a little bit of background about myself.
Thanks. So at first, I would like to ask the key question about quality first. So since you are working in different type of products, some of them are like enterprise product like Salesforce. Some of them are like the actual normal customer product like Twitter. So in your opinion, what do you think is the quality of the product or quality of the software?
Yeah, that's a great question. So to talk about quality of the product, first we need to think about what is the goal of the product, right? And what it's trying to do. Each companies in each different industry have different criteria of defining what is quality, right? And but at a high level, quality is essentially aiming to solve the goal of that product itself, right? So for example, in enterprise software, the product is being used by other companies or other enterprise, to have the functionality be functional and intact and performed at all times means stability of the revenue or how the customer can operate, right? So the way they look at quality there is essentially things need to continue to be functional. While on the other hand, when we were talking about maybe more consumer-facing products like Twitter and Facebook, the main focus there would be tailored towards faster development times, faster iterations, time to market, and time to value. So not to say that they don't have quality, but the meaning of quality is different, right? So in the end, we have to take a look at what's the value we're trying to provide. Even in the enterprise facing software companies, even at Salesforce or some other enterprise SaaS companies, there are portions of the product that may be more consumerized, right? And that might lead into faster iterations as well. So it's not like they don't have quality, but like when we talk about quality, we have to have a clear criteria and clear value proposition, right? Because everything has costs, and cost needs to offset the value, or value needs to offset the cost, I apologize, in order for us to make the business sense. So.
All right, wow, that's great. So since let's say each company has defined their own quality, and I think from my understanding, we have discussed a bit before the recording that now we must have this kind of quality embedded in the whole process. We don't want the quality to be done at the end, that you have only the tester as the last man standing between the product being developed and to the hand of the developer, to the hand of the customers. So from your experience, can you share with the students on how would you do this kind of quality since the beginning until the end, and even maybe after the product has launched?
Yeah. So so when we talk about quality, there are it's a, first of all, it's the responsibility of people in all the roles in the team or in the product development lifecycle. So it's not just the responsibility of one person or one types of roles in the team, right? Because as you might already know, the sooner we caught all the issues, the cheaper it is for the organization and the team itself. That's why we try to shift everything to the left, where we are able to talk about what things should look like, if there are any gaps early on. And when we talk about quality, it's not just about doing the work itself, to like not just writing tests and running through the script, right? It's also involved like process improvements. What are the process that can help reduce the risk or reduce the chance of things deviating from the expectations, right? We talked about the expectations earlier on, that different types of industry have different expectations. But let's say that we define that expectations. What are the things that we can do to make sure that product, which is something that's going through the process, stay within the boundary of the expectations? And that's the responsibility of all the parties involved. The process I've seen in my experience, right, involved with, like, we have quality engineer, we have the developers or engineering in the team, we have product development teams, we have designer, UX designer, UI designer. All the parties are responsible for making sure that the product stays within the boundary, but also they are also the key people that can help define the process such that we can follow the boundary. Because in the end, when the product doesn't perform according to the predefined agreements, it costs all of us, right? Not just one person or the other. We have to get back to the drawing board sometime and work through what needs to be done. Sometimes it needs to go all the way back to requirements where things are not following, the lay of the land doesn't fit with the original requirements, so we have to redo it. So that's where quality it's built into the process, as opposed to like one person. Now, on to the other point, the way quality is done usually, and where we're going in the industry is essentially, because it's responsibility of everyone. It should not be looked at or handled at the last stage, right? In the end, it's very expensive to handle. Also, if we were to catch anything, like especially when things are already out in production, it will cost a lot to fix or even undo, right? One of the things we're trying to avoid, for example, in my immediate team at the moment that I work with, we want to build in quality concerns with the engineers, right? It's not the other people's responsibility. It's not, we don't want to throw it over the fence. When things are considered and looked at during development or even early on, quality is built into the way software is built, right? People will think more about how it can be tested, how modularized things can be, right? Which often leads into better quality of the code, better maintainability, right? So one thing I want to also point out is quality is not just like getting things done, getting the immediate project done, right? It's also how things, how the features and capabilities stay intact in the long run, right? If there are other things that need to happen with the software, if there are other teams or even the new projects come in to modify and change the existing system, how can we make sure that the software that we built remain intact and have less chance of it being disrupted or impacted, which is usually where quality issues happen, by the way, by other people unknowingly change the system that had been built maybe a year earlier, right? Because they don't have the context. Not to say that they are intentionally destroying things, but most of the time the context is not transferred, documentation is not built in. It's hard for people to understand, right? So that's why I keep emphasizing that quality is also the process itself, which makes it even more interesting. So.
Wow. Okay. So so it seems like it needs quite a lot of understanding for the whole team to work together towards the goal of delivering the high quality system and also maintainability in the long run.
Yep.
But I guess there are some people in the team who are like more specialized in terms of this kind of quality assurance, right? Can you describe a bit the role of this kind of people in the team, please?
Yeah. So throughout the different teams that I work with, right? The things that we maybe look for and is what is unique about people in this role is they looked at the world differently, right? From the perspective of the customer. I think quality engineer is the one who are most empathize with the customer because they're actually behaving like customer using our system. And one of the key, I think, unique thing about them is that they are curious about how things work, and also they're open to different perspective of understanding, right? So, for example, and in my experience, I've also interviewed for and built a couple teams that includes quality engineering. What we look for is flexibility and adaptability of understanding of how different system and technology works, but also understanding of the lay of the land in the world, right? Because not everything is 0 or 1, right? Like I mentioned earlier, it depends on the types of products, the industry that they're in, the goal of the feature, right? That makes what we measure very interesting, right? It's not always that we want to achieve 0 bugs and 100% like code coverage, for example, right? That really depends on how much cost does it take to achieve 100% code coverage, and what's the value of achieving 100% code coverage, right? Because sometimes having bugs, or what sometimes we call defects, happen, or even regression happens once every set interval might be acceptable as a value of the company, right? On the other hand, if you're sending a rocket ship to space, you might need 0 tolerance, right? You might need everything to go 100% by the plan. But if you're like Facebook or Google, you might be more tolerable for some of the clicks might take slower to realize, because you want faster iterations, right? So flexibility and adaptability, right, is key, right? Understanding of different frameworks, different technologies, and understanding of different industry helps a lot, right? Because it's not 0 or 1, there's no clear metrics on it. One of the key things that is also interesting is what you gain from each of the experience that you have, right? As you work on it more and more, you understand that there are variations of those, and that is what determined to be the quality of the quality engineers.
Wow. So. Okay. So and from your experience that you have been working involving developing a number of products, what do you think is the most challenging things in terms of quality? I mean, when you want to ensure some certain level of quality, and what are the issues or the problem that's kind of difficult to deal with?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one of the main key things is setting the right goal and expectations, right? That translates to many different things. So number one is when you understand the goal, then you understand who is it trying to serve, and you can then point out what are the requirements and how clear do you need the requirements to be, right? Some of the product needs all the document needs like maybe 10 pages requirements, while some other products may just need maybe a minimal amount of those, and it needs to remain flexible. Many of these many of the issues, defects or otherwise, happens because of miscommunications, right? So miscommunications, different understanding, different interpretation of things. As you know, all of us building software have different backgrounds, right? We came from different places, we have different understanding of things. So no matter how hard we try to write things down, even we have like a 10 pages PRDs, people can still interpret it differently, right? So having a consistent understanding, walking through that helps a lot, right? The same thing translated to design, architecture design, user experience design, right? Walking through that, getting the understanding of that helps, right? So in the end, what I would distill down to it is communications and understanding, right? But like I said earlier, it's not about trying to get it 100% right all the time. It has costs and values. So we need to determine the goal and determine the value of what it's trying to do. So that would be my take on that.
Okay. So, and it seems like this kind of responsibility is the person who managing the team, right? To make the communications happen, to make people have the same goal and understanding.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So,
okay.
So yes, the person managing the team needs to facilitate this for it to happen, but it's actually the responsibility of the team members to make sure that the right things are communicated, right? Because we will have the forum, we'll have the documentation, we'll have the meetings, we'll have the checkpoints, but like people need to ask the right questions. And I think the most important things that quality engineers bring to the table is they are curious and they ask the questions about how things can behave, how things can turn out to be, what are the criteria of it being successful, right? Criteria of success, acceptance criteria, and all of that helps, right? Sometimes we have this process, well, software engineering process is not just for the sake of having process. Most of the time, it should not be just for the sake of having the process. It solves certain goals and solves certain problems, right? So it brings people together and get people to ask questions and understanding, right? Get to the consistent understanding of things, right? So that's why it helps. That's what helps with ensuring the quality of the process, the quality of the product, with which then leads into like customer satisfaction, which is the main goal that we're trying to solve, right? In the end, it doesn't matter if you have 100% code coverage if customer doesn't actually are not satisfied with it, right? And has other issues, right? Because because when we talked about maybe one slight tangent to the question, we can come up with as many metrics on quality as we want. In the end, it depends on the definition of those, how we measure them, and how it's being tracked, right? Because we want that to translate directly to customer value. We don't want things that are measured to be how it's measured, right? We don't want people to study for the test. We want people to study for the value that they bring, right? That's why in some of the companies and some of the teams I work in, we don't instill policies such that it's so strict that people need to adhere to it without reasons, right? All the rules have reasons, and there are always exceptions to the process. So in the end, the goal that we try to instill in our team members is how we solve customer values. That is the end goal. The things in between, all the measurements, all the metrics, code coverage, percentage pass fail, and all that, just the mean to an end. It's not the end itself, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't want to lose sight. What is it called? The tree for the forest. So,
okay, wow. But just to emphasize to my student, you're not studying just for passing the test. Okay, you're studying for a longer goal, which is your knowledge and your understanding. Maybe the last question, since I think you're in a position that many of the students might wish to be, to work in, let's say the leading companies in Silicon Valley. Can you give some suggestions on how would you suggest them to achieve this kind of work position, to work in Silicon Valley and in high-tech companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, I've talked to a couple of different folks in the past, throughout my careers. It might sound very meta, but I've said this many times. It's maybe sound simplistic, but like this is basically realistic, right? Don't basically the advice would be don't stay within, like, think outside of the box, right? Think about the goals and what we're trying to achieve. Don't do things just because you're told what to do, right? Like, understand the inspiration behind things. All the questions are asked, not just for the student, actually all my team members as well. I always encourage people to think about what are the reasons we are doing what we're doing, right? It's not just for the sake of I'm being told what to do and that's what I'm just going to do, right? When you understand the reason and why we're doing things, the next expectations of you is then to come up with the process and come up with the goal of achieving the higher level goals, right? Because in the end, in order for you to get to the next level, you need to be able to operate at the next level. And for you to be able to operate at the next level, you have to understand the goal of that level first. So as part of the job is to, how do I understand basically my manager, my boss, or the goal of the company, and be able to provide recommendations and get there, right? The first step is understand what you're doing. The second step is being to provide recommendations on how you can do better. And then the third step would be, propose it and try to achieve it, right? So the work and the role is not limited. Right now, the industry is growing a lot, right? Like in the end, IT, R&D is essentially limitless. It's going to go into all the industry, right? So the limitations is what you impose on yourself, right? Think outside of the box. Try to grow as much as you can, get as much understanding. One thing that we recommend would be the things that what we call a growth mindset, right? Things basically are there. Everything are able to change, including yourself, right? So it's not about what you know; it's about your ability and your effort, right? So that would be my suggestions.
Wow, thanks a lot for the great insights. I think the student learn in both the technical part and also how to aim for their career goal as well. So
Yeah,
I think
sure.
that would be pretty much for today. And we'd like to thank a lot, Pipak, for sharing your time and also your valuable suggestions with us. Okay, ครับ thanks a lot ครับ thank you ครับ